Girls of Reddit, what are the cringiest things guys do? Assume my interests/hobbies are geared towards attracting them. I could not tell you the number of times I've been out at a bar/club/wherever, and a guy will proactively ask me about my interests and I'll vaguely answer, and he'll keep prying. So I tell them, I love LOTR, wrestling, and I'm just getting into gaming, etc. and immediately the interrogation begins. One guy in particular was grilling me on LOTR, favorite scene, favorite book, do I know who this character is, blah blah blah, and I ended up talking about the Silmarillion, and he had no clue what it was, and it turns out he had never even finished reading the trilogy, but he told me he was asking me these questions because he didn't think I was actually into it. Yes, I only have these interests/do these hobbies in my free time, so that I can go out and lure in old guys like you. The perfect plan. Revving their truck to impress you. When you're on a walk, your lifted truck is not that impressive, and you don't look like a manly man when you do this. I'm 16, so maybe it's just a teenage thing or maybe not. Where's my hug? Never fails to make me cringe. It's like being obligated to hug someone you obviously didn't want to in the first place. The day after a second date I got a massive text which was a very poorly disguised oops wrong number fake text. It started out, oh hey Matt, I missed your call, blah 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 something something something, then went, by the way, I met this amazing girl, and went into extreme detail about how wonderful I was. I'd spent about 5 hours total in his company in my life, and how he couldn't tell me because he didn't speak girl, and maybe next time he should hold my hand, because I might like that. He was 25. I almost threw my phone across the room out of cringe. To this day I haven't read the whole text, it was too painful. A guy I work with has been trying for the past 2 months to sleep with me. This is a list of the cringe-worthy things said in the attempt to get in my pants. Background info. I'm in Canada for the summer visiting my family before I go back to New Mexico for the winter. Work guy has a GF who is 2 months pregnant. Finds out I'm leaving for the States in October. We should duck. Just get it out of the way. I won't tell anyone, come on, just one time I need it before my GF has the kid. Giving dating advice to other ladies in the kitchen. It's only a good relationship if the man pursues the female. That is how you know you have a good guy. Chicks should never make the first move, it isn't classy. I know what I'm talking about. I have been with over 100 women. I was in jail for selling pills. I learned karate while in jail and I'm a black belt now. I also am brothers with all the Hells Angels, so just let me know if someone is picking on you. The kitchen we work in is very small. My stove is next to his, and to get to it, he must walk behind me. He takes every chance he gets to try and brush up against my butt. Today actually, a guy tried to physically pick me up. I'm a very short person, so in order to get leverage, he pretty much thrust his crotch into my stomach and tried to heave me up. We went from talking about superheroes to pretty much the most awkward and unexpected moment ever. I pretty much just squirmed away and went, no, let's not do that. Some guy asked if he could holler at me a few weeks ago while I was walking home from work, alone, around midnight. Please don't do this to women, it's terrifying, even if you mean no harm, especially at night. There's a time and place to attempt to pick up women, think social gathering, bar, party, etc., but not when she's just walking home, minding her own business. Whenever a guy tells me I'd look prettier with a smile, I want to scream. Look, I'm a person too, which means sometimes I have bad days. Also, thanks for implying that on top of having a terrible day I also look unattractive. If you are truly concerned, then ask me if there's anything you can do, but don't pressure me to force a smile when that's just not how I'm feeling. I cannot stand it when guys just blatantly stare, like stopping in their tracks, mouth hanging opening, staring as hard as they can. That is so ducking creepy. How do they think that's going to get them anywhere with a female? We are scared that we are about to be abducted. Does anyone know how to deal with this stuff? Whenever a guy hits on me and then finds out I'm married, I usually just say thank you and move on. But sometimes the guy doubles down. One time someone said, so, are you happily married? We could fix that. Ultra cringe. I also had someone be super persistent while clubbing with a friend who had just broken up with a cheating boyfriend. I went out with her to cheer her up and get her out of the house. He literally would not take no for an answer and kept trying to get me to go back to his place to smoke grass and see what happens. No thanks. Become hostile immediately after being rejected. This is especially common on dating sites. If I choose not to respond to someone or tell them I'm not interested, there are quite a few guys who immediately lash out at me, calling me names, saying they can do better, etc. I've been with more than one guy, 3, in fact, who didn't think brushing their teeth was a big deal. They either wouldn't brush before bed or wouldn't brush in the morning. Your breath is disgusting. Stop wondering why morning Rex doesn't appeal to me when I can still smell last night's sushi on your breath. I don't want to make out with that. No mouth kissing allowed. No touching allowed. Actually, sort out your halitosis and then we can talk. When some guy hits on me and I'm polite and say no thanks and he keeps hitting on me and I move or turn away and he keeps going and I say I'm married, I am, and that finally works. Why is it not acceptable when I'm just not interested, but it is when I'm taken? It is like their egos can't understand that someone wouldn't want them, but if I'm married, they can tell themselves that I'm obviously totally into them, but am taken. And yes, of course, some guys still do continue after that, but it is a smaller percentage. I notice that when I go into a stereotypically masculine store, auto store, hardware store, farm supply, etc., and the only patrons and staff there at the moment are men, there is a moment of quiet, and then suddenly a couple of them will start being louder or crude, drawing attention to themselves. I understand why they do it, but frankly it's just comical, not impressive. Super freaked me out when I was walking to class and a guy just came up and started walking beside me, telling me how beautiful I was and if he could get my number. After I said no, he continued walking with me and asking me questions about myself. Please don't do this to anyone. When you don't reply to a text or something right away and they send more messages apologizing for the neutral thing they just said, asking whether you now hate them, imploring your forgiveness, asking if you are busy, etc. Then, if you don't reply to that right away, they turn around and start calling you a frigid bee. Then by the time you actually check your phone, they have dissolved into making the most indecent propositions they can come up with. I really need to delete Tinder. This just happened over the weekend and I cringed pretty hard. Guy I've never met strikes up conversation with me at a bar. Great, fine. Then he introduces me to his friend, who's silently lingering behind him because he's a great guy, and proceeds to go on and on about this friend's achievements. Mind you, the friend is standing right there not saying a word and looking at me expectantly. None of us have met before. What is this? Am I being punked? And then he got upset when I didn't go home with his super successful friend. Duck off. Girl invited me to a bar. I show up and her guy friend's first act is to say how uptight I look. Her friend is a big guy with a white button-down shirt that he has unbuttoned all the way and a black tank top underneath. I had business attire on minus the jacket and tie. He proceeded to untuck my shirts and exclaim there, "That's better." She grabbed my hand and walked away from him. Buying me a drink before you even ask me if I'd like one. Is it a nice gesture because you're genuinely interested and kind and want me to stick around longer, or do you have ulterior motives? We don't know, and no intelligent woman would take a drink from your hand, no matter what your motive. It makes us feel uncomfortable, and you aren't winning any points. If it happens to me, I'm usually nice. I'll take the drink and ask them to walk me to the bathroom. Sure, you can wait for me, but I accidentally spilled that beverage in the bathroom. If I'm interested in you, next round on me. I don't like being followed. I literally walked around a bookstore for 25 minutes gauging if this guy was actually following me, and when it became clear he was, I walked back to where my dad and little brother were looking at comic books and immediately let my dad know that I wanted to pay and leave. When I'm out with my boyfriend and a guy says to him that he'll tell him something later because a lady is present. Dude, I'm actually really interested in whatever gross story you want to tell him. Why would you leave me out of that? My BF knows me well enough to give them permission to say things because he knows I love gross/raunchy stuff. But the fact That I'm being treated with kid gloves just because I have a vag really offends me. By far for me, it is when they are sitting at a table and one has their back to you and one can see. Can be more than one, which makes it worse. The one looking at you clearly tells them to check you out, and they spin around and look at you, but then pretend they are just admiring the sky or something. It makes me cringe so hard I turn into a sultana.